I joined the military to serve my country, to be a better man. So when my commander handed me a carton of eggs and told me the budget for new weapons had run out, I started to question if it was all worth fighting for. The rotten egg. It does 1,000 damage and is even armor piercing. So after becoming aware of this, I wondered, could the game be beaten with only eggs? Let's find out. My mission began in good old Africa. Why was I there? Well, you see, word got out that Wesker was planning to do something horrible, and because nobody else had wanted to fight a war equipped with only chicken eggs, I was the only one who showed up. Well, except for my idiot partner, of course. Our first task was to find Irving, which was our only connection to Wesker. But before that, we had to go get ourselves some top-tier gear. And who better to supply that than our boy Julian? Julian was a local who owned many chicken coops around the area, and luckily for us, he had a whole suitcase of eggs ready to go. But upon opening it, the most disgusting smell I'd ever smelled engulfed the room. Apparently, Julian didn't realize that stuffing hundreds of tiny eggs into a small, unventilated briefcase during the hottest day of the year was a bad idea. For the next 10 minutes, I explained to the guy why he was a useless idiot who may have inadvertently caused the end of the world and that his mother most likely regretted having him. Without any guidance or help to look forward to from here on out, I took it upon myself to test the effectiveness of the rotten eggs. Sheva didn't look impressed. Damn it! I had splattered over a dozen moldy, disgusting, maggot-infested eggs on my partner's face, and other than a look of annoyance, they hadn't affected her at all. Did these things even work? Were we just gonna be killed the moment we got into a fight? I didn't know the answer to these questions, but there was only one way to find out. What's happening? Ah! In self-defense, I threw 2 eggs at the guy and he was killed instantly. I can't believe it worked. The power I felt in that moment was beyond anything I'd ever felt before. As Sheva and I continued pushing our way through the village, we ended up coming across a wild mob. And in the middle of it all was Julian. It was immediately clear what had happened. See, the locals had found out that Julian was selling eggs to us, and it was because of him they were all being slaughtered. He was to be made an example of in front of the whole village. And it was in that moment Sheva decided to go rescue him, but I stopped her. These people weren't savages, okay? They weren't animals. They were civilized human beings who would surely give him a fair try. Oh my god. Oh, well, never mind. Now, see, if Julian had simply told these crazy villagers about Honey, they definitely would have let him go. Thank you to PayPal Honey for sponsoring this video. I will use the money to buy more eggs. Honey is the #1 shopping tool in America, and to make things real simple, it saves you money in ways you may have been unaware of. We all know what coupons and promo codes are, right? What Honey does is it searches the internet for promo codes on items you're already buying so you don't have to. On average, Honey finds discounts of 18% when there's a coupon to be found. But the savings aren't even my favorite feature. What I really love about Honey is the price watcher. So basically, let's say I want to buy a game on my favorite online store. I can check the price history over the last 120 days, and Honey will tell me how low the price has been in the past. They even give you the chance to drop list the item, which alerts you to when the price drops so you don't miss out on the deal. I did this for multiple games, and the price was dipping constantly over just 120 days. Go to joinhoney.com/Dante to add Honey to your browser and start saving money. It's completely free and very easy to install, as you can see here, so there's really no downside to having it. Again, go to joinhoney.com/Dante or click my link in the description or pinned comment down below to support me while also getting yourself a really handy tool. Alright, so because rotten eggs did more damage than the unupgraded pistol at this point, this little fiasco wasn't anything too concerning. That is, until I realized Big Axeman was completely unfazed by my secret weapon. Did eggs even do damage to bosses? I couldn't tell. Right as I was about to curl up into the fetal position and accept my death, Kirk came swooping in and saved the day. Oh, thank God. I was a little sad that I wasn't able to tell if my eggs could actually hurt a boss or not, but the Ouroboros fight was coming up next, so it wasn't a big deal. As we made our way around the corner, a poor innocent woman called out to us that she was being kidnapped. I debated running up and helping her since it really wasn't any of my business, but because going through that house was unavoidable, I didn't really have a choice. So I bolted into the apartment, took aim, and accidentally killed the kidnapping victim. So skipping ahead, Sheva and I happened to come across Alpha Team, or what was left of them. They had been completely wiped out. But how? And that's when the team leader spoke up. He told us that they had been waiting for a shipment of weapons for weeks. The situation was looking dull, and team morale had never been lower. So, when the shipment they had been waiting for finally came in, the men celebrated. But upon opening the crates, all they were faced with were cartons upon cartons of eggs. It was obvious to me what had happened here. These men weren't seasoned veterans like I was. Their egg combat experience was near zero, so when a demon from the pits of hell itself showed up, they had been completely paralyzed. As the lieutenant breathed his final breath, he looked me in the eyes and said,
"Avenge me."
Avenge me! No!
With an egg gripped firmly in each hand, I charged forward. I was going to avenge those men.
Fuck this.
We were trapped. I had no choice but to fight. But could Ouroboros really be killed with eggs? Oh. Not only had I avenged my fallen brothers, I also beat my very first boss with only eggs, and it didn't even take that long. Perhaps this challenge was possible after all. Yeah, this was gonna be a problem. The truck guy. See, I knew he was gonna be an issue when I first started, but oh boy. After my 20-second death, I was getting a little irritated. So I did something evil. You see, I didn't care how I did it. As long as the guy's cause of death was eggs, that was good enough for me. So basically, I was already using a trainer to give me infinite eggs, and in this trainer was a speed hack.
Oh, let's go! That's class!
But hold on. I may have squeaked out a victory there, but what about the door lock? Surely I had to use my knife on it, right? Oh, okay. It was too early for celebration though, because next up was the chainsaw guy fight. At first, I was terrified. The man seemed completely unfazed by even the foulest of my chicken eggs, but at a critical moment, I remembered something. If you jump down the little ledge of the bus and then climb back up, the little idiot isn't actually able to get you. So after annihilating all of his boys, I started caking the poor lad's face with the yellowed crust of weak old chicken fetuses. Now, to the untrained eye, it looks like the chainsaw guy is doing fine, but at a certain point, the guy just couldn't take it anymore. He died instantly. Anyway, as Sheva and I continued following the trail Irving left behind, this massive bat came at us from out of nowhere, and it was now more than ever I questioned the egg's effectiveness. Sure, they hadn't let me down so far, but the possibility was always there. The fight was filled with filth from beginning to end. It was a never-ending cycle of pain and misery that could only ever end when the boss was dead. As I threw egg after egg, I could feel the clock slowly ticking away. How many more eggs was this gonna take? Were they even hurting the guy? I had no idea, but my faith never wavered. And it was in that moment the disgusting creature was finally defeated. So yeah, the turret section was impossible to do with eggs. It always ruins every challenge I do, so let's just pretend it doesn't even exist, okay? Besides, we have bigger and better things to get to, like the jungle. In fact, we have an interesting new enemy type here, the shield guys. Coming into this section, I was a little worried these guys would be invincible. I mean, can you blame me? They have shields. But look, my egg turned a shield into splinters. That is the true power of the egg. Other than that, nothing really interesting happened in the rest of the jungle. Sure, I got some funny kills and had some pretty spooky moments against the Chainsaw Twins, but overall it was some pretty straightforward stuff. At least, until I got to Irving. When I first started this challenge, he was the boss I was the most nervous about, and for good reason. The problem with Irving is he's so far away from the ship, my eggs weren't able to actually reach him. Sadly, Irving is the first boss to not be killable with eggs. Is what I would have said had I not been using a trainer. So what I did was increase my speed again, turned on no clip, which allowed me to walk on water like Jesus Christ himself, and I began the long, arduous battle of patience. Yeah, this is obviously cheating, but as I said in the beginning, all I care about is if each enemy is killable with eggs. I don't care how I do it. Like most bosses before him, Irving took a beating. I must have spent 25 minutes on the guy before asking myself if I was even doing damage to him. After all, he wasn't meant to be harmed by eggs. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he were immune. Had I finally reached a dead end? Well, no. After enough egg throws, Irving got fed up and exposed himself to me on the back of the ship. So I chased him, threw eggs at his flailing little body, and finally he was dead. Our next destination was the lab, and with the lab came lickers. These things were a massive problem. Unlike other small enemies on our travels, lickers weren't stunned by my eggs. Sure, they still took damage, but because it took over 20 of them just to kill a single one, it really wasn't worth it. We booked it to the nearest elevator, pressed the button, and waited as the entire licker population descended upon us. Now, although this was easily the most horrifying moment of my entire life, I refused to back down. Sheva was relying on me. I had to protect her, but that didn't change the fact that my eggs weren't doing anything. I felt so powerless, and we were gonna be killed any minute now. In my final moments, I was debating whether or not it was worth it to push Sheva into the middle of the group so that I would at least have a chance of making it. But before I could even get my hands on her, the elevator doors opened. Oh, thank God. Holy, that was close. It was here Sheva and I noticed that the enemies were now armed with guns. Apparently they realized that attacking me at close range was pointless, so instead they chose to evolve. But just like them, I could also evolve. It was time to get into an all-out war. The battle tactics these men displayed were enough to shatter my confidence. They would dodge my attacks, duck under my eggs, and were overall more intelligent than my previous foes. It was terrifying, but I never gave up. I kept moving forward, wiping out platoon after platoon. Right when I thought I was finally starting to get a handle on the situation, I came across yet another Ouroboros, but this time, the guy was completely nuts. As scary as the fight was, my chances were looking alright. The eggs I threw at him made worms fly off his body, and sometimes, parts of him would even blow off. It really looked like they were doing something, but 5 minutes passed, and then 10, and then 15. No matter how many eggs I threw at him, he just kept pushing on. So, okay, I sped myself up. He'd definitely die if I machine gunned him with my eggs, right? No. I couldn't understand. Why wasn't he dying? Parts flew off, my eggs were making contact. What was wrong? And that's when the realization hit me. My eggs hurt him, sure, but they were never enough to expose his little yellow balls. Only fire was able to do that. So no matter which way you look at it, I'd need to use something other than eggs to take him out. How depressing. After making our way through some scary rooms and narrowly avoiding a liquor party, Sheva and I finally came across the man we'd been searching for since the beginning, Albert Wesker. And, oh my god, it was Jill. The moment the fight started, I charged Wesker and began unloading on his face. But, he was too good. So instead, I targeted Jill. She wasn't the easiest to target in the world, but she did slip up every now and then. What was that? I tried my best to get him back, but look at him, man. Like, oh my god, there was no point. Why was I even there? After a few more perfectly tossed eggs, Jill started to get a tummy ache. Something was wrong. Was I hurting her? Oh, no, of course not. I had faith in my old partner. It would take a lot more than a few rotten eggs to take her down. Okay, Jesus Christ, I killed her. It was during the next round I finally figured out how to hurt Wesker, and that was when his back was turned. I could tell he was embarrassed. But instead of fighting me like a man, Wesker gave up and ordered Jill to fight us herself. What a coward! There was no point in chasing him though. Jill needed me. Surprisingly, a well-aimed egg was able to disrupt the mechanisms in her chest piece. It was a risky solution, but it was workable. And eventually, Sheva was able to pull the device free from her chest. But now wasn't the time for celebration. Wesker's plans were almost complete, and without anyone else to stop him, we couldn't stay for long. But before we left, we were able to get some insight into what Wesker's true intentions were. You see, he was the one who was responsible for pulling the funding from the military. Wesker had been developing a new weapon that was more sustainable than bullets, and that was exactly what I held in my hand. But nobody took him seriously. How could rotten eggs possibly be used as a deadly weapon? The board of directors laughed in his face before firing him. And because of this, he wanted revenge. He'd show the world just how brilliant his invention was by destroying it with the very thing that got him fired in the first place. The damage would be catastrophic, and life as we knew it would end. He had to be stopped at all costs. Luckily, we were able to catch up to him before he escaped on his jet, and it was then we began the final battle. This man was ruthless, evil to his core. But you know what? I never gave up. Even when things weren't looking good, I continued to throw my eggs one after another. At one point, I even got super lucky and knocked Wesker's sunglasses off, getting most of my next shot directly into his eyes. But it wasn't enough. We needed another advantage, something to guarantee our victory. And that's when I noticed the lights. Wesker was still able to see us, and because of that, it made hitting him with my eggs difficult. So I turned them off. And this completely transformed our advantage. He literally didn't know what hit him. The moment he'd get confused, I'd toss 3 eggs at him, always making sure to aim one directly into his eyes, and after a while of this, the poor guy just couldn't take it anymore. He collapsed in pure agony. He was in so much pain. The rotten eggs had clouded his vision. The maggots were making their way into his brain. It was truly horrifying to witness. But that wasn't the end of him. He was still trying to escape. So we chased after him, crash landed in a massive volcano, and faced off for the final time. My mission was clear. All I had to do was keep throwing. My legs could melt off, my arms could melt off, but as long as I kept throwing, the world would be saved. I knew that eventually Wesker wouldn't be able to take my onslaught anymore, and Sheva and I could have our happy ending. And you know what? That's exactly what happened. After such a long journey, we could finally rest. So to recap, the only parts that weren't possible egg only were the turret section, Ouroboros, and Excella. If you guys enjoyed this video, click the like button, subscribe to me, and click that bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you thick boys in my next video.